It is time to tee off for Who's Your Caddy. Kelly is here, but I am here to introduce the show. Kelly said, Joe, you start it, and I'm going to join right in. Kelly is here, Miss Kelly in Phoenix. And the topic of tonight, I believe this is the first show that we have done that is actually a PGA tournament. The end of last year, to end 2022, there wasn't really any actual PGA tournament, so we actually have a real one happening now, the Sentry Tournament of Champions. It officially kicks off the PGA season. It kicks off January 5th, obviously goes through Sunday, January 8th, 2023 at Kapalua Plantation Course. Kelly, I cannot explain to you how long I was practicing saying that. I looked it up on Google just to make sure. I did the slow pronunciation. I got it. It's the Kapalua Plantation Course.
Very close. I'll give it to you because you Googled. Most people that I hear is Kapalua, but I could be very wrong.
When it did the slow pronunciation on Google, there's a fast one and a slow one. It said Kapalua, whatever you had pronunciated it as the slow version, and the fast version felt all together. I was like, okay,
you know what? That's probably how the locals say Kapalua. They're like dropping all the vowels.
I don't know. I'm happy. I feel like I got 80% of it right. So passing grade. Plantation Course was a pretty easy and 2/3 of the course name. But this is the first of 17 designated events in 2023 that featured increased purses. Excuse me. I was about to say purchases. That's not right. Promised participation from the best players in the sport. 17 of the top 20 players in the official World Golf Rankings are in the field. Normally, the Players, Majors, and FedEx playoff events enjoyed this in 2022. So this is pretty big. And something I was also reading, the only par 73 the guys will play this entire season. So it is the longest course, but at the same time, at 7,596 yards on the scorecard, there's 3 holes that make up the most of it because 11 of them are under 425 yards, which is third most of anywhere on the PGA Tour. So it is the longest part of course that these guys will face all season, but it features some of the shortest holes as a course overall. It's a very interesting one because obviously 9, 17, and 18, you're looking at, probably 3 shots to legitimately get on the green. They are not makeable, par 5s, as one would say. It's not getting on in 2 and make an eagle putt. You can make up your dough, though, on the other 11 holes. So, with that being said, in a beautiful 70 degrees, God, I wish I was in Maui, 70 degrees, basically throughout the entire weekend with no rain, nothing but sun. Man, that sounds way better than North Dakota. Kelly, it just does. Kelly, what are you looking at here in the first tournament of the year? I know you're excited.
I am excited. In the first tournament of the year, I just want to vomit out all of my favorite things and players. Kapalua, this plantation course, this tournament, the Tournament of Champions, is really one of the most difficult to handicap for DFS because it tends to be dominated by the same players. So when you're doing your prop bets, it's one of my favorites. But when you're looking at DFS, it makes it super difficult. So I'm just going to jump in here. As far as the skill set that we're looking at this course, accuracy is not super high on our radar. What most players thrive at on this course is when they have skills around the greens. They need to be gaining strokes around the greens. So 14 of the last 17 winners ranked in the top 10 for the week in strokes gained around the greens. That tells you something big, that this is probably the most important stat of the week. And it's more a short game course than we might see in other tours. That being said, we can't neglect other skill sets that we want our players to have. And I'm going to tell you why, because the players that just do exceedingly well in this tournament have also made some records in other skill sets. So let's get started about approach. Justin Thomas and his approach have helped him more so than his ability around the greens. And let's face it, when we look at last season, or even the last 10 events, I should say, because that's typically what I tend to look back on, he is not the greatest of putters, just going off of that. And we don't really care, because approach. Let me look at my little fact sheet here for you. Just 3 players. He is just one of 3 players with 3 or more wins in Hawaii over the last 40 years. Stuart Appleby and Ernie Els. Those are not current names, folks. We're going back the last 40 years. He's just one of 3 players with 3 or more PGA Tour wins in Hawaii. That's very important.
2 of them in this tournament.
That's right. And 2 of them have been this particular tournament. He's the only player to average a full stroke or more gained by his approach shots per round. So it's not around the green like we discussed, which is very, very important in this tournament. For him, it happens to be his approach. And he has 108 birdies or better in this event since 2019, which happens to be 14 more birdies than the nearest competitor. So obviously, Justin Thomas is one to contend with when we're talking about this particular tournament. Jon Rahm, I'm going to tell you three particular players, but then I'm going to go into who you should pick, because you need to know these things. Jon Rahm, 1.75 strokes gained, not on his approach, not around the green, but tee to green. Tee to green, which is not a factor that we would necessarily be looking at in this tournament, but tee to green, he's gaining nearly 2 strokes per round on this course, and happens to be the best ranking among all since 2015. He has not won this event, however. So when you're building your props, think about that. Does he have that dog in him?
Woof, woof.
I've been dying to say that, I swear.
All I kept hearing over the weekend was Max Doggin from TCU. So, yeah, we love, starting the new year off with that dog.
Got that dog in him?
Mm-hmm.
I would say so. He probably does have that dog in him. He's like basically the number 1 player in the world. So let's see it, Jon Rahm, because you keep posting these scores. Last year, 33 under par. That is the second best 72-hole score in PGA Tour history. And he has tied with 32 birdies. He has tied the all-time mark in any 72-hole event. So he's a birdie king. And he has never shot over par. Ever. Never, ever shot over par on the Plantation course. That's pretty amazing stat in itself. So when you're building your DFS lineup, keep that in mind. I certainly did. I just am pretty in awe of that stat alone. The last one I'm going to bring up to you is also tee to green strokes gained skill set that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Sung J M, or as we love to say, Sung Bae. He's averaged more than 1.5 strokes tee to green, slightly under that of Jon Rahm, every time he is teed it up on this course. In Hawaii in general, he's played there 22 times in PGA Tour events, and he has scored 67.77 an average in those rounds. So low, but that's not uncommon in this course. We know that this course, they're going to shoot low. They're going to get amazing fantasy points, loads of birdies. but it is pretty great to say that that score is the best of any player since this tournament has moved to Maui in 1999. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your bets. So I'm just going to give you here. I'm going to touch on a couple of those guys again, but I've thrown in some others we want to really think about. I wanted to give you some from each range, but I'm having a hard time myself making those decisions. So I'm just going to give you some of my favorites. You can weigh them out and then build the rest of your lineup, and also use this information as you're building your prop bets. Some of my favorite prop bets obviously are when we're able to build them out, they give you 5 players and you can pick 4 of them to finish in the top 20 or the top 10. I love those. Those props especially are some of my very favorite. So let's talk Jon Rahm. If I'm going to pay up, I'm paying up for Jon Rahm. We already discussed. I think he's got that dog in him, Joe.
I can no. This is a golf show. I feel like that's too rah for a golf show, right? Like will I do that? Will I do that on the course this upcoming year? 100%. Like when I smack a 300-yard drive, 12 out of my 18 holes, 100%, I'm gonna go. I got it. But
you got it.
I feel like when we're talking PG, I feel like that's too classy, right? Like you think Masters, right? You don't think like Barstool Bros on a janky par 3 in Wisconsin. You think, Maui.
Maybe.
I love it.
But I just wanted to be like, do it, because.
What do you want? A high pitch? Do you want a low pitch? What do we want here? Because I've done both, honestly.
Let's get a very deep guttural woof.
Oh, I see that one. Yeah, see that one feels more embarrassing than the
I
others.
like that one. That one was great. We'll go with that. Got
to come from the stomach.
I like Jon Rahm. I'm going to pay up for him in this tournament. $10K on DraftKings and a whopping $12K on FanDuel. Whew, that is going to eat into your budget. If you're unfamiliar with the difference in the two, you get a $50,000 salary cap on DraftKings and a $60,000 salary cap on FanDuel. And typically we would see anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 difference. And we are at the high end of that. It will definitely eat into your roster, but I think it's well worth it. Averaging, well over 100 points. Let's see, 117 projected fantasy points for your DFS league on FanDuel. And they're lower on DraftKings, under 100 with even the top players. So 97.7 fantasy points on DraftKings. That would be the second highest projection available. I love Jon Rahm for his recent play. I love him for his event history, finishing an average of 6th. He's got 2nd place, 7th place, 10th, 8th. So he's definitely in there for sure in the hunt on your props in top 10, if not to win this year. And we've already talked about some of his amazing stats. All of his strokes gained are on the up and up, off the tee. Fantastic. His approach, it's good. I'm not going to lie. It's good. But when you look at some other players, he's among the best, but not the best in the approach. But his score, that score, it's pretty low. And when we talk about around the green, again, this course is perfectly suited for Jon Rahm. We're looking at saving a scramble around the green about 70% of the time. So I'm loving Jon Rahm for this tournament. Love it or hate it. That's where I'm at on the top scale. I'm not ranking Justin Thomas as high. He's 9.9 thousand on DraftKings, 11.5 on FanDuel. You can't pick them both because once you start looking at who's available in these lower brackets, you're like throwing darts, honestly. Like I said, this is very hard to handicap for DFS purposes. You can't pick them both. They're just not going to fit unless you don't care about the rest of your roster. But we already talked about Justin Thomas. He has a ton of course history. He's one of the greatest players on this course. But when I started looking back at some of his past stats, like, I don't know, I don't feel as confident in them. When we start to look at his around the green stats, which we talked about is very important, he's kind of gross as of last 10 events around the green this last season. I'm not thrilled, and I'm not thrilled with some of his rounds 2 and 3 scoring either. So there are some rough spots for our buddy Justin Thomas, but you can't deny that he's got that event history that we talked about. So you're going to have to make a choice. I'm going Jon Rahm. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's funny you're comparing the two because Rob Bolton from PGAtour.com put out the power rankings for the tournament. Justin Thomas is 1 and Jon Rahm is 2, and he bases it off of Justin Thomas is built for the course. Obviously, we've talked about he's won twice, and he's hung a pair of thirds and tied for 5th in similar wins to this week. Jon Rahm came in 2nd, 2018, and last year, 2022. He's had no worse than 10th. He's closed out official competition 2022 by going T2 win, T4 win worldwide. So, like, they're basically neck and neck. It's not like you're gonna save much money
right
between the two, but if there is, say you are building your lineup, you have Jon Rahm in there, and there is somebody on, let's just say, DraftKings that you need an extra 1,000 for, just drop it to Justin Thomas. But if not, you're basically coin flipping at that point.
Yep,
And I would take the guy who I see. It's hard because Justin Thomas has won the course
Is he gonna be laissez-faire?
I don't know. I like Justin Thomas. I think Jon Rahm's better at the moment. Yeah, I don't really know. I would say base it off of go with Rahm, but if someone is an extra 1,000 that you need on DraftKings or an extra 5,000 that you need on FanDuel, then just make the switch. Or sorry, 500 on FanDuel, not 5,000. Extra 500 on FanDuel, extra 100 on DraftKings. Make the switch there, but I would say they're fairly interchangeable at this point. I mean, if you like a lot of underdogs, then put them both in your lineup and just throw a bunch of 3K guys in your lineup. But yeah, I'll trust your judgment on Rahm. I have no strong feelings towards either of these guys. The numbers literally put them at dead freaking even in this tournament based on recent history. So there's no real deviation from one to the other.
Right. I'm on board with that. I agree. I just feel like, could this be like, this is where I get my introspection when I look at things with heart. And I think, is Justin Thomas going to go into this with just not lazy, but just been there, done that kind of attitude, and I'm great at this course and blah, blah, blah? Is Jon Rahm going to go in there and be like, you know what? I need to freaking win this thing. I've come so close all these times. I've never finished worse than 10th in my last, 6 years or more. So let's do it. So yeah, that's why I'm leaning towards Rahm. He needs to win. I want to throw another somewhat pricey player into the mix. I'm going to share with you pretty much four pricey players. But what I love about the next one here is you're saving a little bit. Tony Finau. We're throwing Tony Finau into the mix. 9.3K on DraftKings, 10.7 on FanDuel. And he's averaging about 92 fantasy points per game are projected and 111 fantasy points per game on FanDuel. So we're looking at relatively even projections. Finau has really been playing great over the last year, over his last 10 events in particular. His approach, somewhat mediocre. I know I came across meh on Rahm's approach, but his approach is far better than Finau's. I will say that. Finau's approach isn't bad. It's just not something I'm excited about. But around the green, he is far better. He's doing great in that area, which is what we're really looking for. And all of his strokes gained have been on the rise. I like Tony Finau. I'm going to somehow get him into the mix probably. But the one that's really screaming at me, and I hate it so much, Xander Schauffele. Ugh, like Shuffles, I call him lovingly. Shuffles. I don't know why. It just feels gross picking him. I don't even have a reason. I don't.
I like Xander Schauffele. I have no reason. I don't know why. I just like him. Maybe it might be his name, but
I think it's
like
his name. Why I don't like him. Like, it sounds way too hoity-toity country club for me, I guess.
Okay.
Xander Schauffele. I don't know.
So I want to throw something at you. Because I just
Okay.
built a lineup with Rahm and Justin Thomas in it. It doesn't feel that bad, honestly.
Okay.
So you're looking at, and I'll go down the list of salary of where we're at here. So 10 and 9.9, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, respectively. Max Homa at 86. This is DraftKings also. You're filling 6 spots at 50,000. Max Homa, 8,600. Adam Scott, 7,600. I think I went for name brand there. Seamus Power, 7,200.
I like that one.
Scott Stalling, 6,600.
The one I hate the most is going to be the Adam Scott pick.
And that's name brand. So if I get rid of him, you have 7,700 remaining, which
that's
puts
a
you
decent
at
chunk.
Your top 5 guys there would be Henley, Adam Scott, Bradley, Aaron Wise, and Thigala. Sahith
now
Thigala.
That is one. That is my wild card. I'm so glad you did this.
And it's funny. So they have the average fantasy points. Yeah, Keegan Bradley apparently puts up 100 fantasy points per game. And it's funny. Your guy, Thigala, of all the names mentioned, he is middle of the pack at 77, which is still pretty good for his price range. But looking at averages, he actually is, again, dead in the middle, the third highest average. He's literally middle of the pack for the guys that were just listed. But if you put him in your lineup, you have about 400 remaining. So if you wanted to, you could even get rid of Max Homa, and you're not really going up too much. But if you wanted to, you could get guys like Tom Kim, Cameron Young, who won the tournament last year, and Elephant Trunk putting stroke Will Zalatoris, who you don't want because he can't putt. Like, that's arguably one of the worst putters on the tour. So Homa, Victor Hovland is right beneath him at 85.
What about Cantlay? If
Patrick
I'm looking
Cantlay is 97. So if you were to get rid of,
still on the high end, yeah.
Well, if you were to get rid of Justin Thomas, you can throw in Patrick Cantlay, and then that leaves you room to actually go and get Matt Fitzpatrick.
I don't know if I'm that brave. I was just curious, but I do like that. Yeah. I like that lineup. The Adam Scott is the one that scares me. But when I was looking at who do I toss in there, as just some value type picks, the Gala is one that really stood out at me, and it has nothing necessarily to do even with his last 10 events, but on another tool I use featuring Course Fit, the Gala is really really well suited for this course. So if there was any event for him to be like, hey, look at me. This could be it. So I like that. I like that you threw some of those out there.
Yeah.
Xander Schauffele, getting back to what we were talking about, has what Finau doesn't have. So what I don't like about Finau is he does not have great course history, event history with this event at all. But Schauffele's does. Schauffele's has excellent finishes here in this event. His last 10 events have really been on fire. And around the greens, nobody can touch him. He's pretty amazing, whether he's in the sand or in the rough or anywhere around the green. Xander Schauffele is one of the best. Actually, I'll give you an exact number because I was like, holy crap, no wonder people really want to play him. He's very pricey. He's got that event history. He's got the strokes gained. And when he's got the low scoring, and when we look at around the green, 78% of the time he's going to save from the rough or elsewhere, short approach there around the green, and 96% of the time out of the sand. I don't know that I've seen that very often, other
Pretty
than
good.
Patrick Cantlay, which I mentioned, also has an amazing game around the green. So there you go with your Xander Schauffele. We talked about Theegala as a wild card. My other wild card, I'm going to throw this out there just for funsies because it actually won me a whole bunch of money last season. Random dart throw at JJ Spawn. I think people are going to be like, what? JJ Spawn doesn't have event history here. His last 10 events have been mediocre finishes around 15, 20, 15, 58. So very sporadic, but I would say top 20 finisher as of late. And nothing great to write home about. However, again, around the green, he's in the 68% completion there. I like that he does well around the greens. I like that he has fairly low scoring going into this. That's something we want to look at because this is going to be a lot of birdies, a lot of scores far under par. So I'm throwing that out there. JJ Spawn as my wild card, 6,300 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel. And I don't know if I told you how much Theegala cost. He is.
I believe
You have
he's
that
72 on DraftKings. And he's 73 on DraftKings. I'm not sure what he is on
73,
FanDuel.
83, which speaks to me as well. When I see numbers that are very close, within 1,000, it makes my heart go pitter pat because I really, really like I really like that because it helps us in our salaries. It helps us build, and it makes me think that they know something that we don't. So I like Theegala. And again, when we look at JJ Spawn, super close in price, again, 6,300 and 7,800 respectively. So those two jump out at me when we talk about salary. And then the one thing that freaks me out, as much as I love the data and the stats for Seamus Power, I hate the disparity in his salary. So I will only play this on DraftKings at 7,200 versus 9,000 on FanDuel. Makes zero sense to me. I hate it when there's that huge disparity. I love it when they're much closer. And on average, I would say they're about 1,500 to 2,000 apart on a good day. If that helps anybody.
One question from Royal Slade is Adam Svensson. Really good option at his price, question mark. He is currently listed at 6,400 on DraftKings, which puts him just $400 north of the lowest price player, which is Chad Ramey. He, of the lowest price players below 6,400 and below he is one of two to average over 70 fantasy points per game, the other being JJ Spawn.
Yep.
At Svensson's game log, his last time out, he he padded his stats. He had
Yes.
132 points his last time out on DraftKings. 2 before that, 54 and 33 respectively. Basically, his last 3 tournaments, he scored just about the same as he did in his or the 3 tournaments prior to his previous one. He scored the same amount in his previous one, if that makes sense. So, not a glowing endorsement for the man, but
right. I'm
he's
looking at
popped off.
yeah, I am looking. He does well scrambling, not so great in the sand. I prefer JJ Spawn at that price point, especially with his more consistent play. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the camera because I literally am scrolling through some data. And I'll do one more thing for you here. Let me find Svensson. Course fit. I think I would stay away from that. It's not looking good when we're talking about around the green as being a major factor on this course. Not a strong suit for Svensson on this course. He is falling below the average PGA player around the green. So I think I would stay away from that. And if we're comparing apples to apples, when I pull up JJ Spawn, he is slightly better than the average PGA player on this course around the green. And I would trust that along with the data. So if you're looking at price point, I prefer JJ Spawn over Svensson by far.
Spawn puts up a lot more birdies than him as well.
Hope that helps.
Yeah. Spawn puts up more birdies, and if you see this as a birdie course, then obviously that is going to be big. Svensson isn't the biggest birdie guy looking at his last 7 events. And one of the events that I had mentioned, it was his 3rd previous event. He actually didn't even make the cut. So, not good.
I like Svensson. I just don't like him for this particular course. It's not an easy course, like I mentioned, to handicap. It's just not, he's not very well suited for it. There's just better priced options, like we mentioned, such as JJ Spawn. You're very welcome. Happy to help. Yay. If there's not any other questions, if you're watching this late, you're watching recording, go ahead and tweet your questions at Kelly and Phoenix. Happy to help. I don't know if Joe wants to help. You can definitely chat up Joe at Joe_Zollo.
I'll try my best. All I can tell you from this is that Will Zalatoris isn't the answer. That's I think what I can get out of this. I've watched his putting, and my buddy's a giant PGA fan, and every time he sees a Will Zalatoris bad putting stroke, he sends me the video. And I don't putt very well. I have confidence I have at least comparable putting stroke to Will Zalatoris, because I saw one of them, and I say elephant trunk putting stroke because when an elephant trunk swings back and forth, it's kind of haywire. When Will Zalatoris goes backwards in his putting stroke, it doesn't go in a straight line.
No, this is not a course for Will.
No. And he's priced 8,900 too. That's pretty steep.
Yeah. It's he has a great approach if we're talking about the average PGA player on this course. Great approach, but he falls short around the green and in putting, as you mentioned. So yeah, not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about like Cantlay, so well suited. I really think the surprise player may end up being Theegala just because he's been off the radar. But Theegala and JJ Spawn just really jumps out at me. I just sometimes get those vibes.
JJ Spawn's been scoring in his 50% of his last events. He's literally tied for 15th. So obviously looking good there. Slade, yep. Thanks. That's the coach jersey back there. I moved over just for you so you can see the old coach jersey. Anything else, Miss Kelly?
I don't think so. That pretty much covers it. I gotta go catch a bus. I'm literally the last. It's 7 p.m. here in California. Everybody left. Last person left just before we went live. So I'm here. I'm gonna lock up. Gonna catch a bus.
Yeah. I got to catch a bus too. I'm at my home. So my home studio. It's tough. Oh, enjoy LA. Woo.
Thank you. I'm usually home by this time, but I was on. If you didn't catch it, you can watch the replay of her story hosted by Britt Flynn. It is on the Club Fantasy YouTube channel. She interviewed me tonight just before this. Otherwise, I would have been at my apartment.
But you're here, and you're at a medieval times castle.
I'm in a dark corner.
It looks great, though. It looks fantastic. All right. For Kelly, myself, Club Fantasy, who's your caddy? Good luck in the first tournament of the year, the first PGA tournament of the year at this point. Teeing off in beautiful Maui, where all of us wish we were, because it's cold in North Dakota, and I would like to be in Maui. No, it should be a fantastic tournament. Small field, but a very good field, and it is going to be one that is very interesting. Good luck, everybody, and we will see you